Welcome, and thank you for joining me on the mat today. Today's practice is all going to be about strengthening our pelvic floor. So, for today's class, you are going to want either a block or something fairly tall. If you got one of those really thick books, or even a couple books. We want it maybe only about 4 centimeters or 4 inches tall, but no lower than 3 inches. And then depending on where you are in your pregnancy, as well as how comfortable your hips are feeling, if you are not comfortable sitting on the floor or you're in your third trimester, I recommend grabbing a pillow or a bolster to sit on, as well as for one of our exercises a little bit later. So if you're all set up, find that comfortable seated position, tall through the spine. Let the shoulders be heavy. I know we're working on the pelvic floor, but we still, want to give those shoulders and that back a little bit of attention as well. And the first part of our pelvic floor strengthening is going to be our breath. So if you think about the lungs and the diaphragm, they're stacked on top of each other, and then right underneath is our pelvic floor. So when the lungs and the diaphragm expand, the pelvic floor is forced to drop. And then when you exhale, we create that space, and the pelvic floor lifts back up. So while we're not really thinking of expanding the belly, especially as we get further along into the pregnancy, that's kind of the feeling we want, but more downwards. So really breathe into the lungs, inhale through the nose, let the lungs expand, let the diaphragm expand, and then the pelvic floor drops. Exhale through the nose, relax everything, create that space, and the pelvic floor lifts. So we want slow, deep breaths. If this is your first time working with your pelvic floor, you may not notice the sensation very much. But as you practice and as you get used to this breathing, you'll feel it more and more. So if you're unsure whether or not you're working your pelvic floor just yet, that's perfectly fine. Still take those deep breaths. Sometimes our body is doing amazing things without us really noticing. And the more focus we bring to that area of the body, the more we can start to notice, start to control some of those little micro movements. Let's take 2 more of these deep breaths. And these are great to practice every day, whether or not you're doing any of our other exercises. Our pelvic floor really becomes important post-labor to get that strength back into it. Beautiful. So we're actually going to come right up to standing. It's just easier to breathe when we're sitting down here. So if you're sitting on your bolster or your pillow, remove it from underneath you, and we'll just set it off to the side. We're going to start with our feet fairly wide, so even wider than hip distance. Now we don't want to go too wide again though, because especially as we get into our third trimester, we get a lot of relaxants. And then we don't want to overstretch. So thinking about prenatal exercises as not focusing on flexibility, stability, and strength. And so we want perhaps a little bit shorter of a distance. So if you know what your pre-pregnancy flexibility was, bring it in just a little bit. So you can have your hands on your hips, your belly if that's more comfortable for you, heart center. You're welcome to send them up to the ceiling if you want to work on your shoulders today as well. The first exercise is just a gentle bend into one knee. Inhale, and again, think of pulling your thighs together. Other side. Lift, press through the heels, pull it in. Going nice and slow and controlled. So one thing about strength training is we're not going fast. Fast equals cardio. Slow and controlled helps us more with our strength and the control of those muscles. So really slow down the breath, move with the breath. Exhale to bend, inhale, rise. We'll just take one more each side. This is kind of our warm-up. Beautiful. And then we're gonna walk those feet in a little bit further. Kind of that half step in is really probably all you'll need. So our heels are still wider than our hips. And again, hands can be wherever you like. We're gonna take our little goddess squats and we're gonna start with some pulses and then we'll take some shorter holds. So sink it down, 2 little pulses, press back up. So as we're doing this, think of keeping the chest lifted as much as possible. Oftentimes, as we get a little bit heavier in the belly, the tendency is to lean forward, but if you can, find that tall spine. Now, same as our previous exercise, really. As you're lifting, you're pulling both of the thighs inwards. Pressing through the heel as you lift, pull it in. Exhale, sink. Inhale, rise. All right, one more little pulse round. We can take a little break, a little movement, a little sway. Sometimes it just feels good in that lower back and the hips to get some just random movement in there. All right, we're gonna do 3 rounds. They're gonna be short 6-second holds. So what we want is our muscles to stretch. So we are still working the thighs here, the inner thighs, outer thighs, but we want the muscles to come back and contract to their regular position. So we don't need to hold our stretches very long. So again, hands wherever you like. Sink it down, holding chest up. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Press into the feet, pull in. And again, sink it low. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Press and lift. Just one more. Sink it down, hold. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Press and lift up. Good. Give yourself that little sway. We're going to come back down to the earth. So here's where you're going to want your block or book for sure, and then potentially your pillow or bolster. So the block is going to be down at our feet, and the bolster pillow is going to be up on our upper body here. So we're going to have the ankle stacked on the blocks, knees nice and bent, and then this bolster just provides a little comfort, especially as our belly gets quite big. It's not necessarily comfortable to lay on our side without some kind of support here. So your hands again can be wherever you like. We're doing some little clamshells. So the ankles or the feet really stay glued to each other. We inhale, opening up, and then we exhale, release back down. And if you're curious about the block, it actually aligns our hip a little bit better, a little bit straighter here at the top. So it's just a subtle change that most people may not notice, but it does have some benefit here. So again, we're inhale to lifting, exhale to lower, thinking slow and controlled. Now I have lost count on this side. So we're aiming for 10 to 12. If you get there before I do, you're more than welcome to take a little pause. Again, I've lost count. I think that was about 6. Could be wrong. Take one more. All right, rows. Now the hardest part of our exercise of today, depending on where you are in your pregnancy, is to get up and switch to the other side. So you can also roll over, just so my back isn't facing you. I'm going to completely change all my props. Again, I call this beach mode. Ankles over the block. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. And if you are counting on the other side, whatever number you got to, just do the same on this side as well. You may notice one of your hips, just as we're lifting and lowering, it feels a little bit tighter than the other. So you're more than welcome to do like one or two more on your tighter side, if that's comfortable for you. And inhale, slow exhale. We have two more here. So especially as you get into your third trimester, these little clamshells are really going to be your friend here. All right, gently press yourself back up. You can move the props out of the way. If you liked the pillow to sit on, take it back underneath you. But we are only going to be, another 30 seconds or so. So find that comfortable-ish seated position, whether it is cross legs or you feel like you do better in a little bit of a butterfly to finish us off. We're just going to take 5 deep breaths, again, back to that pelvic floor. Inhale through the nose, lungs and diaphragm expand, pelvic floor drops. Slow exhale through the nose. Make some space, pelvic floor lifts. Just 4 more breaths. Welcome to close the eyes as well, if that feels comfortable for you. Perhaps each breath feels a little bit slower. As we take this last breath together, let's get our arms involved as well. Inhale, reach it up. Thinking about all the things, pelvic floor and arms. Exhale. Hands come to heart center. Let the thumbs rest gently against the chest. Tall spine. Well, I thank you for joining me on the mat today, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. The light in me sees and honors the light in each of you. Namaste.